Guys, welcome to this bonus episode of Pulp Kitchen. Thank you so much for joining us today on this Friday. If you didn't know, we've done our full episode where we talked about
Talk to Me and
Joyride. We literally just recorded it and I was like out of my brain. So if you haven't seen those, go check it out. But George, today you are going to be talking to us about your experience with Tarantino Live.
And yes, and Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction, and Inglourious Bastards.
Very fitting.
Let me
People may
explain to
assume
you
that
why we're talking about Tarantino. You might think, why are we talking about Tarantino now? Well, who knows? If anyone would like to listen to James and I's experience of seeing Quentin Tarantino live in flesh on the stage, go listen to our episode. It was late March, early April, around about that time. I want to say like probably the early 60s, maybe numbers-wise, maybe the mid to late 60s.
Yeah, it could be.
That was a great experience. We're not going to talk about that now. The reason I'm talking about Tarantino today is because for my birthday, which I had recently, my girlfriend got me tickets to go and see something called Tarantino Live, which was being pushed to me on social Instagram. I was going to say that, social media. And it originally started in LA. It's come to London. I think its run is finishing very soon. But essentially, Tarantino Live is a musical remix of all Quentin Tarantino's films that plays fast and loose with the Quentin Tarantino cinematic universe to kind of weave tales and weave the films together in a very stylized, very iconic fashion. And what you get is very playful recreations of Tarantino's films, but also, you know, the music is so integral to his films. You get, if you think of all the great songs that have ever been used in his films, imagine those being played by professionals, being sung by professionals at full blast. It's great. James,
did you watch the films in anticipation of the live
Here we
show?
go.
Or did you watch the live show and go, oh my God, I can't wait to rewatch the film?
Good question, James. So I've, of course, seen every Tarantino film.
Yes.
Some more recently than others. And in anticipation of it, my girlfriend has seen some, not all. And I said, oh, well, if we're going to go see it, what haven't you seen? Well, you haven't seen Reservoir Dogs. We should probably go see that. It's his first one. It's his OG one. So we watched that.
Very pure Tarantino.
That was the week ahead. Then on the day of, we went and saw it, had a great time. It was really great fun. And I also saw it when they had like 3 actors missing. And they did a really good job. And like, you know, it's not a West End production, but all the cast were like top level, really great quality. And it just like, I could see how hard they were working. And I just, you know, props to them. And it was at the Hammersmith studio, I think it was, or Riverside Studios in Hammersmith. Okay. Just giving you all the context. Anyway, we went to see it, and then afterwards we were like, that was great. We've got to watch Tarantino tonight now because we're in the mood. We've got the music in our head.
Nice.
And we were torn between Pulp Fiction or Inglourious, and I said, well, let's do Pulp Fiction because, you know, we haven't seen that in a while. Yeah. It's my 5-year rule, James. The last time I seen it was 5 years ago.
Nice.
When I showed it to my girlfriend for the first time. She hadn't seen it. And she had said recently, she was like, you know, I actually can't remember all of it. I'd like to rewatch it. Yeah. And I was like, I can rewatch it. It's been 5 years.
Your film podcast is named after it.
Sort of, yeah, exactly. And then in the week after it, she was like, oh, I would like to like take a couple more blind spots off. And I said, well, look, I'm quite keen to rewatch Death Proof, but you probably wouldn't like that. I said, I'm not going to watch The Hateful Eight. It's my least favorite one. I really would love to see Jackie Brown again, but that is... well, it's nearly 3 hours, but so is Inglourious. And between the two, she said, oh, actually, you know what? I will watch Inglourious. So we sat down and rewatched that. So the reason I wanted to talk about it is, yes, we get a lot of questions about Tarantino, but specifically Pulp Fiction, because they're like, oh, you're called Pulp Kitchen. Yeah. The film Pulp Fiction. Surely you can... And it's time to talk about it. So first of all, I'm going to tell you about Tarantino Live. And just to clarify some of the way it works is like, when I say it's a musical remix of his like cinematic universe, it's kind of like a speakeasy vibe. And you have scenes that kind of blend together where like Jackie Brown sings across 110th Street fantastically, and the Reservoir Dogs are like her backing singers. And there's another bit where, Fabienne Butch's French girlfriend in Pulp Fiction. In Pulp Fiction, he wakes up in the motel room. She's watching a war movie. And that's when he discovers that he hasn't got the watch. And in this, after he's gone out, she rewatches the war movie. And the war movie it then becomes the war movie. And the war movie she's watching is Inglourious Basterds. And later we see Cliff Booth from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood driving down Sunset Strip. And he's got, you know, the hitchhiker trying to get in the car. And they have that conversation. Then he becomes the driver from Death Proof going to the bar to meet the girls. And so It's just a very playful mix of the two. Anyway, this bonus episode is going to be miscellaneous thoughts on the Tarantino films I've rewatched, starting with Reservoir Dogs. So, when was the last time you watched it?
I want to say when I was 21.
Okay, so we're
I
talking.
would have seen it first time.
So like 8 years ago.
Yeah. Wow.
And that was the first time you saw it?
No, I would have seen it when I was 16.
How many times
first
do you think
time.
you've seen it?
I think I've seen it twice. I think those are the 2 times I've seen it.
And do you ever go back and like watch scenes from it, whatever?
Yeah, I'll discover certain scenes. I'll get like they'll come up and then I'll indulge and watch them. But I can't say I've truly kept up on it.
What I find interesting with all of these films is that it did very much take me back to when like I first got into film when I was like 15, 16.
Yeah.
I mean,
For a lot of people,
Tarantino is a
holds a place in
gateway.
their heart.
It
really
is, and that's fine, and that's okay. And I know it's kind of a cliche, especially with a male audience, to be like Tarantino gets you in. But like, I've
Kill
seen,
Bill for me when I was like, whoa.
Yes, exactly the same. And I've watched these films a lot, and I would watch individual scenes, and I had the screenplays at home, and I would read through them and stuff.
I always remember at a Blockbuster near where I grew up when you know so much of that experience is browsing the covers and how important they were. And I always used to remember seeing Kill Bill Volume 1 and Kill Bill Volume 2 because they were so distinct and striking, which was the yellow cover with Uma Thurman and the samurai sword. I was always really young at the time when I was going, but I was 18, so an aspirational age thing that I couldn't watch yet. I was just like, I really want to check that out. With no idea what it was about.
But I remember actually going to, when I was in 2003, so it would have been 9, going to a birthday party. I remember the mum in the front going, because the time Kill Bill was out, and there was of course a little, hoo-ha about the violence and stuff. And the mum in the front being like, well, it's directed by Quentin Tarantino, of course, who just adores violence. It's just abhorrent, frankly. And I was like, I kind of want to see it.
Yeah.
Anyway, Reservoir Dogs. So first of all, it's Tarantino's shortest film. It's 99 minutes long. The first thing I noticed was that it has the best shot in the film. Sometimes I do this when I'm watching a film. I like to think of you see an individual moment, you're like, oh, if I could just take that as a picture, that's the best shot in this film. The best shot in Reservoir Dogs, spoilers coming up, by the way. I assume you've seen these films coming up. So is that it cuts back to Tim Roth's character in a flashback when he's going to meet his, do you remember Mr. Orange? He's going to meet his police liaison in a diner at night, and you see him walking through the diner to go to sit at the booth, and as he meets his police liaison at the booth, it then cuts to an exterior shot, and it's like a nice strip of window across. It's just a beautifully framed, and it cuts to quiet as well. You lose the sound from inside. It's just really, really nicely shot. That was great. I think that
usually people would say the gun like straight across the camera.
Oh, with the Mr. White, Mr. Pink, when they're pointing at each other. Yeah, that's good. I think there are sequences in Reservoir Dogs that are actually almost un-Quentin Tarantino. You can tell it's interesting watching a debut film from a filmmaker who has become so distinct in his style. So, for example, there's a bit where we're used to Tarantino doing quick cuts, right? And doing extreme close-ups on tight details, whether it's a door lock opening in Pulp Fiction or a lighter opening there. But in Reservoir Dogs, the bit where towards the beginning, it's Mr. White, Mr. Orange, and Mr. Pinks come in. They leave Mr. Orange in one room, and they go off to the bathroom, and they're talking about the job. And Tarantino shoots it from down the hallway and keeps it in a long shot. And I was watching it thinking, this is Tarantino. Surely any minute now, someone's going to get out the lighter to light a cigarette, and it's going to do an intense close-up on the burning of the cigarette, and it's going to be like... And if you think about the beginning of Inglourious Basterds with the tight close-up on like the milk and the pipe and the smoking and people's faces, it's really not like that at all. And I guess he was still learning that. But there's also the whole backstory with Tim Roth's character, and one particular sequence where he has to learn this dialogue for about how he almost had a drug bust in a railway station bathroom. He walks in and he's made up the whole story, but he's using it for his cover, right? And he's telling Lawrence Bender's character, Mr. White and stuff. And in it, like, there's a bit where he presses the hand dryer and it goes into like really intense slow-mo and all the people are staring at him and it like amplifies the volume. It's really striking, it's really stylistic, but I'm like, doesn't feel like Tarantino at all. I've never seen a scene like this in another Tarantino film. Most Tarantino films, you can cut a scene out and go, well, this is actually very similar or has the same DNA as another film in his filmography. The violence as well. So the big thing about Reservoir Dogs is obviously like the whole thing with the cop and torturing the cop and cutting off his ear. You remember this?
Yeah.
And I would definitely say it's Tarantino's...
He like speaks into it. Oh, you hear that?
Yeah. It's gross. And it is Tarantino's meanest film. And it is interesting watching it with my girlfriend, with how she reacts differently to the different... She's okay with violence, but the different types of violence throughout Tarantino. I think Reservoir Dogs is a really interesting exercise because on the one hand, yes, it is the most mean because you have this... They beat and torture this cop, ultimately kill him. And you have the ear scene. But what I think people... I kind of forget or misrepresent is that Tarantino does, at least in this film, understand violence in its role, because yes, although it's brutal and it's horrible, it's meant to be. You are actually meant to find that uncomfortable. And when Mr. Blonde puts on Stuck in the Middle with You by Steelers Wheel, that's not aestheticizing that violence. It's not condoning that violence. It's to make you feel even more uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I saw that manifest in my girlfriend next to me. Anna was really sort of, finding it really uncomfortable. And even though it's a horrible feeling, I was like, this is intentional. And I'd never thought that Quentin had misjudged the violence, which is what I thought about the end of the Hateful Eight.
You can tell that with like the way that their shirts are white and the blood so wonderfully contrasts that.
Yeah.
And there's so much of it, and it's meant to be there because you're meant to see it, and it's meant to make you feel something.
And I think he uses violence in Reservoir Dogs differently to how he does in subsequent films. Like it is actually in this one much more real and mean. And it was interesting comparing that with. I mentioned that as an example because it's like Quentin does actually understand violence in this one. It's very easy to dismiss him as, but I'm like, no, actually, I think we're not doing him credit here. He knows that the violence is uncomfortable here. It's intentional. Yeah. Whereas in what I find interesting about Pulp Fiction, which has violence in it, but I don't actually think about it as a very violent film. And I talked to Anna about it, and she said, yeah, and we realised that the thing with Pulp Fiction is that no innocent people get killed.
Yeah.
At least on screen. Technically, the boxer that Butch fights is killed off screen. One woman is shot when Marcellus shoots after Butch. But in Reservoir Dogs, the cop gets killed. Police officers get killed. No one gets killed. No innocent people get killed in Pulp Fiction, which I think makes it much more palatable and smoother for an audience. Do you see what I mean?
I'm trying to think like innocent people getting killed in other Tarantino films.
Well, the violence, so like innocent people get killed.
Like the Django slavery, but
no,
they don't get killed. They get violence happens to them. But now I think about it,
yeah. When do innocent people get? Kill Bill is pretty much only
Inglourious is like
criminals
alluded to a lot of the
well,
time.
innocent people, but they're all Nazis or Germans. Like the cinema at the end of Inglourious.
Yeah, but does he?
Spectators.
And it's implied that
the
Hans would have killed Shoshana's family,
and also. In the bar
camp.
Staff, like there's the young waitress, she gets killed, but it's almost that's always any innocent death is a deliberate act.
Yeah,
of course, in Death Proof.
Not seen Death Proof.
Okay. Oh, well, we should talk about that in the future because I think growing up, Death Proof was the one that everyone said was terrible.
Yeah,
and I did watch it 10 years ago, and I thought, that's not that bad. And actually, when they did a bit of it in Tarantino Live, I thought, you know what? I think I'm going to give that another go because there's a good, funny lines there. That he does pick on innocent people.
Okay,
but again, it's so stylized that it's not a real world one.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're getting kind of marred and talking about violence, but that was my main takeaway with Reservoir Dogs, which was great shot, sequences that don't feel very Tarantino-like, and the violence is shot in that particular way. Pulp Fiction, so the big one. So when you sit down to watch a film like Pulp Fiction, it is kind of daunting because it is such an iconic film and it is so famous. It's like sitting down to watch Star Wars for the first time, or sitting down to watch Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, anything that is so represented and also been kind of recycled and used, and a film that has, become very kind of associated with being very film bro-y. And it's 30 years old now. It's been parodied. It's been referenced. And I would say that this was probably the fourth time I watched, maybe fifth, but spread out evenly over like a 15-year period.
Okay.
I watched it when I was like a teenager and maybe a couple of times since. And obviously, I would always dip in and out and watch scenes. But like I said, I haven't sat down and watched it all the way through for 5 years. And I don't know whether it was because I was just on a high from the Tarantino Live stuff, but I watched it and I thought, this film fucking rips, okay? This film is really good and is really good
rips
fun.
And
fucking
rips, man.
In Quentin's voice, I'm like, it just fucking works, man. I just fucking love the movie.
On your uni beanbag, like, bro, this
I
film
know, but
fucking
talking about Pulp Fiction makes you sound like you're at university again, but it is great because we had an email into the main show recently and someone said they didn't really click with it. But I was thinking, okay, what is it that's working with me? And I think, first of all, if you are a Tarantino fan or you have enjoyed cinema, like it is the OG Tarantino. Yeah. It is the most iconic. And watching it again I had that kind of warm feeling of, oh my God, I remember how brilliant this is and how funny this is.
When someone not clicking with it, I remember the first time I watched it, the first half it wasn't clicking with me, and then eventually I really caught up with it. And
that's another thing. I've realised the infectious charm of Pulp Fiction is that it is just breaking all rules
Yeah.
and playing by its own rules. There is no film like Pulp Fiction in a way. Many people
No.
have tried to capture non-linear, or we'll do the kind of pop culture dialogue, but it's like it's not.
That happens in culture when something is so distinct
Yes.
and original that nothing
You can't
else
actually
tries
reduce
to touch it.
Yeah, it's more than the sum of its parts. Actually, it just kind of works as this weird oddity. And I think what is brilliant is actually that for a director that we have often thought about as being very ill-disciplined in his later films, indulgent. I mean, Death Proof's very indulgent. Long stretches of dialogue. I know some people.
Once Upon a Time in
Hollywood is indulgent in a way, but actually, if you look at Pulp Fiction, it is actually very tight. It is upheld and straddled and held to focus by the structure, very formal, strict structure of its episodic nature. This sort of prologue, Vincent and Mia, Butch and Marcellus, Jules and Vince, and epilogue with Bunny and Honey Bunny and Pumpkin in the diner, that actually holds this chaos together. And it's actually very well engineered and efficient in that way. I don't know whether that's because Quentin Tarantino wrote it with Roger Avery, so he kind of tempered Tarantino's nature a little bit. But I think that's why it's actually very, very slick. It goes down very smooth. So yes, you have the long stretches of dialogue about foot massages and Royale with cheese, but those are really sharp. That dialogue is really sharp.
Memorable as well.
Exactly. It's not later Tarantino dialogue of someone going, "Oh, that was on that 70s TV show. Did you ever watch that?" No. This is.
Is it your favorite Tarantino film?
What is my favorite?
Is
Tarantino?
it your favorite Tarantino?
Well, this is the thing. I actually think it probably would be. Yeah. I would probably do it. Like if I had to do a top 3, I would definitely say Pulp Fiction, because it is like everything you want from Tarantino is there, and I could easily rewatch it tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's so full. It's so funny. And also what I like is that each individual story are inherently interesting stories. They could individually be their own film. So I really like this idea. It's like a well-told joke. It's like, imagine you're going on a date and it goes really well and you have great sexual tension and like there's a real vibe in the air. Oh, but it's your boss's girlfriend and your boss is a gangster. You got to look after her. And then
what is this wild?
She gets in cover. No, but it's just like, but like, what if and then the Butch thing is great because you have. Imagine if you did the getaway of your life. You made out with a load of money. It was great. But then one fucking thing that you really were attached to caught you up. And I think that's why it works. Like you're hooked in by this, it's not romance, but this palpable energy between these two people with Vincent and Mia. And the whole watch introduction with Christopher Walken gives an emotional journey to the whole of Butch's thing, which is great. And the whole of Jules's redemption as well. That's an interesting story. And I really like the way it ends, actually. And the original ending was that when Pumpkin is taking his wallet at the end from Jules in the diner, right? Jules was originally meant to shoot Pumpkin, and that's the end, blah, blah, blah. And you can read that in the published script. But I like the ending it is now, because it actually kind of arrives at a nice, slightly deeper point, which is when Jules, he's rethinking his whole life after having this divine intervention thing. And he says, I've been reciting this passage and maybe, everyone is the tyranny of evil men and you're I'm the valley of darkness. But when he says, actually, you're the weak and I'm the tyranny of evil men. And then he says, but I'm trying, Ringo. I'm trying real hard to be the shepherd. And I think that's a really good line and a nice way of ending this film that has had violence in it. And just and I'm just talking again about the way it breaks the rules and stuff. The whole Marcellus and Butch ending up in the basement with the gimp is ridiculous, but it just kind of works. And it, when you say it out loud and when you see it on paper, you're like, this doesn't make any sense, but it kind of behaves its own gonzo logic, that whole film. And look, I admit, I'm not the first. Hot take. Pulp Fiction's a good film. It is number 5 on the IMDb top 250. I'm not the first person to say it's a good film. I accept that, and I realise I'm not saying anything new.
It's nice to rediscover it.
It's nice to
remember.
rediscover it.
So I think we do take for granted films that are in that category of top 100
so
of all time.
highly praised.
And you very much just skirt through. Yeah, well, of course it's great, but to actually rediscover why it's special and to re-remember. I don't go, oh, cool take, bro.
No, but but you understand where I'm coming from.
Yeah. Or even watching a film you've not seen, but watching it for the first time and having this you want to go, oh my God, it's really great.
Yeah.
I know I'm not the first person to say this.
So I really enjoyed getting back into that, and I've already got it earmarked for Christmas now with the family. Because the point I want to make to them is like, we all know Pulp Fiction, but when was the last time you actually sat and watched it?
I love that in July the list gets drafted.
My brother and I were voice noting about it the other day. We're just
nice.
okay, have you got this one? Yeah. Have you got this one? Yeah. So that's Pulp Fiction. So shocker, it's a good film. Now, Inglourious Basterds, I don't have that much to say about it other than, look, it was for a long time one of my favorite Tarantino films, and I do really like it, and I really do. But it's almost when I rewatched it the other day, and I enjoyed it all. But I hadn't seen that in about 5 years. But of all of Tarantino's films, I probably watched that the most in broken amounts. I would get the DVD and I'd watch the opening scene. I would really like study it and watch it, and I watched the bar scene because I thought it was so brilliant.
Yeah, I've seen those two scenes many times.
Yeah, exactly. And as a result, when I was watching the film, I was enjoying it, but I was like, I know you way too well.
Oh, I see.
I know that you're going to cut to that close up there. He's going to pull out the pipe here. He's going to say,
under the floorboards, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly.
They're hiding under the
And
floorboards.
and he's going to switch to this, and he's going to do that, and it's going to go over there. And that's not a criticism of the film, but I find it more as a film audience perspective of knowing a film too closely. And when I got to the end, I thought, it was like, I love you. I need to not watch you for about 10 years.
Yeah,
I need to forget
wait
you.
till you're towards 40.
We need to see other people.
Yeah.
I need to see. Did you just say when I'll be 40?
No, I said when you're towards 40.
James, that makes me feel very sick.
But in 10 years, you'll be nearly 40. You'll be 39.
Don't say it. Otherwise, it'll happen. But I had that with.
Cut to the show.
Have you ever had that with a film?
Yeah, probably, but it's definitely films.
Yeah,
I've
probably,
known too
George.
well.
I don't know.
Yes,
If you
I
could
can't
give me
think
an answer.
off the top of my head.
Okay,
for sure. I'm like, I need to.
Okay, it's fine if you don't have one off the top.
The
of your head.
Matrix 1, I'd say I've known too well.
Yeah. And I knew I had the same thing with Drive. Like I watched that like 4 times within 3 years, and I thought I need to forget.
It's probably
you.
a comment on a film that's fantastic but not good to rewatch.
Well, originally, Inglourious was a great film to rewatch because you discovered more out of it. But I do think
But like, how many
there's
times?
a limit.
It's not like
the
a once
swimming
a year,
pool is only
it?
so deep.
Yeah, it's like you saying, "Oh, it's great to rewatch every 5 years," not like every Christmas.
I think I look forward to having with Inglourious what I've had with Pulp Fiction, which is rediscovering it.
Yeah.
But it's
When
like
did you say the last time you saw Inglourious Basterds was?
probably 5 years ago.
Oh,
but I think way back when I watched it more than Pulp Fiction. You know,
Yeah.
I would. So I think it's you kind of go through like a life cycle of films, just like discovery, like obsession. And some films, and maybe this is the separation between a great film and a good film, some films just can be rewatched endlessly.
Yeah.
And they just reward you and reward you. And that's why films become your favorite films. Like I can probably watch Before Sunset anytime. And I have seen The Prestige like 8 times.
Yeah.
And Pulp Fiction evidently can still hold for me. But Inglourious, I just thought.
Certain comedies as well.
Well, comedy's always a stretch because you know the jokes too well, I think, that they wear out.
I think back to like what I used to think of Dodgeball. Like you could keep watching that over and over.
But I thought that
Like
with Anchorman,
Anchorman
I thought I need to forget you. I need to.
Maybe because I say this, I've never actually watched
But
it
this is
every
it.
6 months.
When was the last time you watched those films?
Long time.
So if you actually watched now, you probably have a really great reaction.
Then I'll
because
see
you've seen them.
clips of like I just rewatched Step Brothers last week,
Right.
expecting to not enjoy it, and I knew every single beat of that film, but I was rediscovering it like an old episode of Seinfeld I hadn't seen in a long time. And
fair
Talia
enough.
was in the room, and I was matching the words to the screen. She was like, "You're
good.
ridiculous," and I was like, "I know." I was actually building these chairs, and I just popped something on Netflix, and I popped Step Brothers on.
Oh, fair enough.
Very good,
So-
still good, Step Brothers.
But I will say for Inglourious, obviously, you know, like I wasn't taking away from all the good stuff that's already there.
Yeah.
You know, Christoph Waltz, excellent, great
Unbelievable.
music. Probably my favorite needle drop in an entire Tarantino's entire filmography is
Yeah.
the David Bowie Cat People.
yeah, it's great.
Probably like that. Great characters, you know, all around. My dad's favorite character is Marcellus Wallace.
Nice.
Actually, just loves that. It's so funny, Pulp Fiction. Something so motherfucker.
Yeah.
When he's walking across the street. Oh, and actually, that's the other thing. Sorry, back to Pulp Fiction a second. I had forgotten how good the performances were. I'd never given credit underneath all of Tarantino's style for how good the acting was. Like Uma Thurman's great. Samuel L. Jackson is like,
He's so good.
This is like, hello, Samuel L. Jackson.
I know.
Welcome to the rest of your career.
It sounds crazy, but he doesn't get to do enough.
He's
Do
not
you know what I mean?
He's not a lead actor enough.
No,
Yeah.
he's really capable. It sounds like, again, it's so obvious, but he's so good. Like, I know when I
Yeah.
talked about the first 2 episodes of Secret Invasion, I was like realized how good he is.
Yeah, he's brilliant, but he's been the most consistent supporting actor.
Yeah. And
He's
I
like the
see-
most second build actor.
And you see him in Django, and I'm like, what you're doing is so interesting.
Yeah, he's
I'd
a really,
rather
really
see
interesting
more.
actor.
There's a whole stuff.
But
story
John
behind it.
Travolta, actually, I have to give credit
I know.
to that. Actually, in this, this like rebooted his career,
Yeah, it did,
and I
yeah.
think he did. I think
Famously meant to be for who was meant to be cast in that?
Oh, is that-
Michael. John
Madsen?
Travolta, yeah, Michael Madsen was going to
gonna be
be
his-
cast in that role, but then he didn't do it in the end.
Well, there's actually you can see a list somewhere that Tarantino's published of like all the names runs up. Like John Cusack, who was going to play the stoner, which Eric Stoltz are being played. Like,
wow.
He had all these lists of like, I really like this person. Like the studio didn't want Tim Roth to play Pumpkin. Anyway, but John Travolta is. You watch him in this film, and this whole thing with Mia, he's doing several things. He's uncomfortable because he's with his boss's girlfriend. He's high because
Yeah.
he just shot up before he got there, and he's also like oddly attracted to her. And he's kind of the whole confused
Awkward
Travolta
thing,
me
yeah.
kind of unbelies it. But if you watch what he's doing, like it's really great, and that's why when he explodes after she's overdosed, it's so brilliant. Oh God, Mia, no, no, fuck me, no. Great stuff.
Do you see yourself completing the rest? Would you now watch Kill Bill, or are you a bit Tarantino'd out?
Well-
Would you go and watch?
Sorry, first of all, I would just say, one last thing before I answer that question.
Not at all.
Pulp Fiction is the only Quentin Tarantino film where Quentin Tarantino appears and it works.
Oh God!
When
yeah.
he plays Jimmy, like it actually, for once, I watched it. I believe I was watching Jimmy.
Yeah.
I wasn't watching Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah.
It ain't the coffee in my cup, Jules.
We discussed it in our cameos episode of bad cameos.
Yeah,
and
like
the
the Django
Django one.
yeah.
Yeah. Early in
when
the
I go
movie
back to
too, where
watch-
it's like late in the movie. You're like, oh, please stop.
My main ones to so Once Upon a Time in Hollywood I've watched very recently
Yeah.
and I had a great experience rewatching it. So I'm not keen to revisit that too soon because
Yeah.
I remember that very well and I hold it very highly. That's in my like top 3 Tarantino. I put it up there. Kill Bill I rewatched both in the last 5 years. I had a great time rewatching both of those as well. I used to think that Kill Bill 1 was great and Kill Bill 2 was a bit slow. Realized that both were great
yeah.
and they both do such different things.
Yeah,
which I
they're
really
so
like.
different. Yeah.
So Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction. I would like to rewatch Death Proof for the reason I said, which is that everyone said it was rubbish when I was growing up, and I've watched it and then I had forgotten about it. There's some good lines that they did in it. I thought that is really good. I remember Death Proof being 40 minutes of great stuff, 40 minutes of really really indulgent cinematic drivel chat, and then like quite a good ending. And for me, the ending of Death Proof is what they should have done for the ending of The Hateful Eight. I'm not going to rewatch The Hateful Eight. I just don't like it. I've seen it twice. I remember it very well. But Jackie Brown is the one that I think a lot of people will skip or sleep on, even though it's become the one now that people say is their favorite, or it might be even his best, because it's the only Quentin Tarantino film that he adapted from a previous source. It's not an original story. And, it doesn't have excessive violence in it. It doesn't have necessarily pop culture dialogue, but I've heard a lot of good things about it, and seeing it represented in Tarantino live, I thought that's the one I need to do. So Jackie Brown, Death Proof are the ones I'm going to go and rewatch.
And we're only going to get one more film, George.
The movie critic,
And
exactly.
a TV series.
And
maybe.
a TV series, and then probably some sort
Imagine the TV series got like 19 seasons. He just waits till he's 81.
I would probably love it if he's like, all right, how long's the TV series? It's 2 episodes long. How long is each episode?
Yeah,
3 hours long. So you've made 2 movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's not what I'd say.
Can you imagine if he he does 10 films, and he just goes on to be like the greatest TV series writer of all
my
time.
God.
And he just goes, yes, and now I will dedicate the second
love
half
it.
of my life.
He writes like a hit sitcom that runs for 10 seasons, and people are like, "That's up there."
The greatest sitcom, yeah.
Seinfeld,
Genre,
Frasier, and
yeah.
Friends. It's up there. Quentin Tarantino's
Comedic timing, previously hidden, now explored.
It's all feet, James. It's all the show's
It's
about. It's
all
all feet. Anyway,
If the boot fits.
that was a very rambly run through some of Tarantino's back catalogue, but I wanted to do it because it come my way, and I know we get emails asking about it.
Yeah,
So
no, I think
what
it's
would
nice
you-
to have these to point to.
Where would you?
My Tarantino favorites.
Yeah.
Kill Bill up there for the reasons I
Which
said
one? First one
earlier.
or second one? Or do you count them
I
as the
kind of
same?
count them as the
That's
same, 'cause
fair.
I think Tarantino does too.
Yeah.
And I think if I was to commit to watching them, I'd
You'd
commit
watch
to
both.
both. So
That's
I'd
fair.
commit them as fun. Kill Bill up there, The Inglorious Bastards. And I do like Reservoir Dogs.
So Pulp Fiction is not in your top 3.
But like, not because I dislike it. It's more like I'm splitting hairs
Personal
between
taste.
yeah. It's like I do really like it, and again, I've not seen it for 8 years, so I should probably go back and watch it.
I think top 3.
I think I rewatched Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Kitchen within like 3 months of each
Fiction.
other. Sorry, yeah. I can't say the difference there.
I slip into it all the time.
I think I rewatched them within 3 months of each other.
Yeah. I think it's got a female lead, the next one. I was thinking it would be Margot Robbie. He would give her the actual lead role this time.
That'd be interesting.
Because, he nearly cast, well, not nearly cast, but
Jennifer Lawrence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the thing was, it was a very small role. It was the Dakota Fanning role.
Yeah.
And I think her people, I wouldn't have been surprised if they were like, you can't do a role that small and be
Which is
Jennifer
crazy.
Lawrence. Or like, if you do,
Fire your
they need to
people.
pay this much for it. And the studio was like, we're not going to pay this much for Jennifer Lawrence for one day of filming.
But it's like, pay this much for it. Like, Jennifer Lawrence will be fine with her next
Look,
movie.
all the
that
people who
pays.
turned up in Oppenheimer.
This is literally what I was about to say. Like, all those people in Oppenheimer are not doing it because they need to eat the next year. They're literally there to create something they really enjoyed making.
Yeah.
But they did it.
Anyway, sorry, apologies if that was a little bit rambly, but let
No, it's
us know your thoughts about Tarantino.
Yeah, what's your
and
favourite
where would you rate
Tarantino
him?
and why? Maybe we'll answer them in another bonus.
I would say mine would be Pulp Fiction,
Yeah.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and Inglorious, but maybe Inglorious I'd switch to Kill Bill 1 now.
Yeah.
And beneath that, I'd say Kill Bill and Inglorious. Reservoir and Inglorious.
Yeah, I don't feel the need to rewatch Hateful Eight, not for a long time. I saw it in cinema and I saw it again at home.
I'm sorry, I don't rate it.
And I was kind of done with it, yeah. Well, guys, thank you so much. If you had any thoughts, send them in to hello@pulpkitchenpodcast.com. Don't forget, we post new episodes of the show every single Wednesday. Check out the full episode if you haven't already. Check back to our last bonus. We covered Barbenheimer. You guys all tuned in for that. But if you haven't, go and check those out. We'll be back next week with another episode. Bit of Gran Turismo. Gonna go see that.
Yeah, you've
Little screener of that.
You've basically done the entire roundup without me. I don't need to say
sorry,
anything,
yeah.
so just...
No, you do the likey, subscribey bit.
Oh, thank you, James. You're so kind. Do the likey, do the subscribey, people. Yeah, like, subscribe, please follow. Continue to follow us on social media, not just because we want your support, which we need, but also because we do post stuff. We do sometimes ask questions and engage you guys and keep up to date with what we're doing. Also, you can follow me, at least, on Letterboxd. If you are on Letterboxd, you'd like to do that. I don't post that regularly, but I do post stuff from the show.
Another thing I'll say is that I know this is a huge cliche for podcasts to say this, but we really do read every email.
We do.
So if
We
you send
really
something
do.
in, it comes on my phone, or if you send us a DM, it comes there. Send.
I know.
hello@pulpkitchenpodcast.com.
We simultaneously have been complaining about our inability to get through the sheer volume of them.
We
but
read every
it's the
single
problem
one.
we like to have.
Yeah, it's great.
So thank you very much.
See you next week.